everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files, a podcast about animal rescue and welfare. My name is Kelly, and every week I talk about issues surrounding animals in this country and to the people who are passionate about making their lives better. And I am so excited today because I have one of my very best friends on the podcast with us. My friend Susan is joining us today. Hi, Susan. How's it going?
Hello, Kelly, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Right? She's such a long time listener, guys, that if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see that she's one of the first people to get a Foster Files t-shirt because I wanted to see how it fit people, how the quality was, and Susan is modeling it for us today. So thanks for wearing that t-shirt.
Of course,
So
this was a
I
very last second. I was like, oh, shoot, t-shirt.
yeah. I mean, I didn't even wear the podcast t-shirt, so you're light years ahead of me. So I am having Susan on today because Susan is just starting her foster journey. And when Susan and I met a few years ago, it pretty quickly became clear that she is a dog and animal lover, just like I am. And she had this incredible dog named Schuyler, who unfortunately she lost a few months ago. And after, going through the process of losing Schuyler, which I'll let Susan talk about to the extent that which she's comfortable, she said to me, I think I want to foster. And so we started talking about that. She has her first foster. So I really wanted to give you guys, my listeners who are interested in fostering, the opportunity to hear from somebody who had their soul dog, lost their soul dog unexpectedly, and then decided to have a relationship with a dog in their house in a little bit of a different way, and to see what that's like for Susan so far. And to be clear, she is so new in this fostering journey that she hasn't even had the dog like a full week yet. So this is like brand new stuff. So we're really excited to see how this is going. So Susan, why don't you kind of just tell us a little bit about maybe your journey a little bit with Schuyler, and then what made you decide to start fostering after she passed?
Sure, thanks, Kelly. Um, yes, so I have always loved dogs. I was the kid who every year for Christmas, dog went on the Christmas list until finally when I was a freshman in high school and I was the last kid in the house. My parents said, "Okay, we'll get you a dog." So we adopted a dog from the Humane Society, and I had Shadow. That was my very first dog, all the way through college until after college. And so then once Shadow had passed away, it was a few years I was living in an apartment, and I knew I wanted a dog, but I knew I wanted a big dog. And I'm of the mindset that if you are getting a dog, you want to give the dog the best kind of space that you can. So I started my house hunting journey, and I specifically bought my house to get a dog. So once I bought my house, and this was in 2017, 2 months later, I had Schuyler. She was a rescue from a friend of mine who actually works with service dogs, and Schuyler had failed all of the service dog requirements because she herself needed some service. um, so I got her at 4 months. She was a very special dog. We really had a great life together. I learned so much from her. Um, and this was a few months ago, she was 9 years old, which for a big breed is getting up there. Her life expectancy was between 10 and 12. And somewhat suddenly, she had started to have seizures, and within a span of about 24 to 48 hours, she was gone. And it was very sudden, but also, when you're with dogs as much as we are, you have very strong instincts about situations. And I know Kelly knows this because she has had many dogs and seen many dogs to the end. And I knew the second that she had her first seizure that this was the end. I just knew something was wrong. And so, yes, it was quick, but I was more prepared than I maybe thought I was going to be. And I also knew immediately that I was not going to do any extenuating circumstances to keep her. The vet told me that even if we could get her out of the seizures, that she wouldn't be the same dog. And our life was incredibly active and outside, and she wouldn't be able to do those things anymore. And I just knew that she didn't deserve that, and I didn't deserve that, and I also just couldn't watch her suffer anymore. So when that happened, I knew I had actually, so Kelly and I have known each other for many years, and I was part of Kelly initially deciding to foster. And so I kind of was on the sidelines and watched her make that decision for herself and her husband and what that looked like for her life. And I knew, okay, this is something that before that, if somebody had said fostering, I would have said, impossible. I love dogs too much. I will keep every single dog and I will have 25 bajillion dogs, which, like, you know, if I win the lottery, still might happen.
Yeah, right.
But before Kelly, I kind of thought I wouldn't be able to do it. But seeing how much she loves dogs, which coming from a dog lover, I think she loves dogs more than I do. I saw her doing it and knew that if she could do it, that I could do it. And it started to become, you know, I considered, even when Schuyler was still alive, and Schuyler had her issues, but she did like other dogs, and I thought we could maybe figure it out. And I was maybe even coming to that when, you know, everything happened. And you know, I think she passed away, and I knew I wasn't ready for my next dog. You know, the next dog that would be my dog. But I did not like my house without a dog. It was quiet. My life felt weird and bad. I had too much time on my hands. Um, I just missed another heartbeat in the house, and so I think it was almost immediate that I knew fostering would be my next step. And I also spoke to a good friend of mine, Elizabeth Kennedy, who works with Biggie's Bullies, and she said that her and her husband chose to foster after they lost their soul dog very suddenly and knew they weren't ready. But again, are such dog lovers that needed a dog in their life. And so they started fostering. And she said for her, it really helped to heal that. And when they were ready, they found their next dogs. And so I heard that story, and also just seeing the difference Kelly has made in, you know, so many dogs at this point. I knew I had the capacity. I knew I had the just resources, and the time and the inclination. And so it wasn't it was a pretty immediate decision. I took a few months, mostly just for myself, to really make sure that I was not going to be a complete mess. You know, bringing another dog in, I needed a little time to kind of let Schuyler be the end, and have my quiet time, and really know I don't like my quiet time. um, and so then this situation just arose where Jessica needed another safe place pretty quickly, and Kelly reached out to me, and it was a very easy yes. And she's a treat. She's definitely a puppy. But so far we're having a great time.
So what I love about your story about fostering is, first of all, I love that your initial thought about fostering was literally the language I hear anytime I talk about fostering. It is, it's a script almost. And I've talked about it several times in the podcast of like, oh, I could never give them up. Oh, I could never give them up. And what I love about you kind of watching Michael and I go through fostering and seeing so many dogs and hearing stories about dogs that we really got attached to and really love, like specifically Susan and I have a mutual friend who adopted probably the one foster that I really said, oh man,
He's the boy that got away.
really hard to give up. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Cora was, I mean, she just wormed her way into my heart in like a deep, deep way. And even though she was being adopted to a friend that I love dearly. And Kat, I knew, was going to give her an incredible home, and her fiance now, soon to be wife, were incredible people. I still cried when Cora left this house. And so I think it's so interesting because you went from speaking that same language to watching us have those moments of saying, goodbye, see you at your next step of this journey to dogs that we loved. And then to yesterday. So, as we're recording this, it's July 5th. Yesterday, we had a little bit of a get together at our house, and Susan came over. And Kat, our friend, said, to Susan, how are you going to be able to give this cutie up? And Susan, without even thinking about it, without looking at me, without any conversation, just goes, she's not my dog. She's not my dog. And it's just like, it's such a gratifying thing to watch you sort of go through that journey and like get to that point where it's not about loving these dogs like in our home forever. It's about loving them forever in a way where you get to be a part of their journey. And specifically for the foster you have now, Susan alluded to this. So Jessica, her foster, is actually the litter mate of my current foster, Kelly. And we've also talked about this on the podcast before, where not every foster is going to be okay in every foster's home. And that's what's nice about being the foster relationship, is that you can make a change if you need to make a change. And so Jesse's original foster reached out to Cross Your Paws and said, hey, she's not thriving here. This isn't a great dynamic. And that can happen for a multitude of reasons. And so it was really nice to be able to reach out to somebody like Susan, who I knew had dog savvy, dog experience. And even though this was her first foster, I could confidently say to the rescue, if you put Jessie with her, she's going to be great. She's going to be in a great situation. She's going to be in a great foster home, and we're going to be able to get her adopted to the right person because we're going to know so much about her personality. And so it's been really fun to watch like somebody you love go through this journey and decide to come on board with you and say, hey, I think this is a cool thing you're doing. Let's do it together. It's really just a really cool thing to experience from my side.
Yeah, I mean, I think, going into it, I think I knew, conceptually, theoretically, like, I understood, okay, like you have always said, is I love these dogs, all of them, and me loving them doesn't mean that somebody else can't love them, that we're just a step along the way, and you've always said that. And I kind of knew, it was like, okay, I get that, but it wasn't really, you never know until you're really put into the situation, actually, how are you going to react? And it has been a relief to have the feeling of, I mean, she's adorable, she's fantastic, and I know she's going to be fantastic for somebody else. And yeah, look at Kelly.
Right.
And she's not, she's just staying with me, I'm her safe place to land right now. And I take a lot of pride in that. And I am very happy that I'm able to provide a calm, safe place for her. But that I know without a doubt in my mind that, she's got a big, full, beautiful life ahead of her with a family, and that family's not me. And I'm, of course I'll be sad, to see her leave, but also proud that, like, I did that, I was a part of that. And I think that it's exciting to look down the road and be like, and I just get to do this over and over again. That part of it, I think, is cool, of like, amazing that instead of in my lifetime, if a dog lives anywhere from 10 to, fingers crossed, 15 years, that instead of having a positive impact on 5 to 7 dogs, I can have a positive impact on, so many more dogs through fostering. And even then, when it is time for me to have my next dog, I can still keep fostering, and choosing a dog with that in mind, of knowing that's my plan, and I can make decisions based on that. And I think that, if I hadn't been witness to everything that you've done, I don't know, I maybe still would have ended up here, but I don't think I would have been as confident in knowing that I could handle it as I am, because I've learned a lot from you just listening to the podcast, but also just in, the pool conversations and night conversations and all the conversations we've had in our friendship.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, I I know that there's so many dogs that are in need, and
Mm-hmm.
fostering is such a almost, I mean, I know, yeah, I would say this and it sounds kind of crazy, but like it's a kind of a low impact way to help, because honestly, like, the rescue is so helpful. They provide everything for you. They facilitate everything with you. You're handling her adoption. I'm working with other people. It's not like they're like, here, take this dog and bye bye. They're
Right.
incredibly helpful. And so it's like, of course, I'm not even having to make, these big hard decisions. I'm just getting to be like, oh, let me take her to the dog park. Let me, help to keep her
Right.
socialized. Let me introduce her to new different things. And it's almost like you just kind of get to do the fun part with,
Mm-hmm.
again, the complications of she's a puppy and we've had, accidents in the house and she chews on
Right.
things, and she's a little mischievous little rascal. But and I know that, down the road, if I have other dogs that are going to have health problems or behavioral problems, and it's not always an easy road to walk, but I think that it's it's very gratifying. I mean, it's been 4 days and I'm like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Just in, like,
Yeah.
it I think I didn't really think about the fact that you're part of a group. You're part of, and especially with Cross Your Paws, there's such a large group of
Mm-hmm.
volunteers, and everybody
Mm-hmm.
has been so welcoming and, like, reached out and asked what I needed and helped me, just like, the day one of knowing where to go and what to do and all these different things. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew I was going to have you, but, like, having this larger group of people who are all, again, have the same mentality, the same heart, the same motivation to
Mm-hmm.
just, make sure these dogs end up in the best homes for them. Um, I think that I just didn't really think about, and so that's been a lovely, it's just like a pleasant thing to be a part of and to kind of discover, that I'm not doing this by myself, in any way, shape, or form, which when you get a dog, in certain ways you are, so I think it's just
Right.
like, it's a
Right.
totally different experience of, oh, I've got this whole group of people that are, like, ready to help, and they're, if anything should
Mm-hmm.
happen, they're right there to pick up the slack. I don't even know
Yeah. I
what.
mean, I think no, I like that you said that, because one of the things that I've talked about in the past on solo episodes is that, you know, obviously I'm a massive advocate for fostering, like that goes without saying, but I'm also not naive to the fact that not every organization is going to run in the same way. And what I don't want is, I don't want people who maybe get into fostering and then maybe they have a negative experience. They're not being communicated with, they're not being provided the right resources, whatever the negative experience could potentially be. I think it's so important to let people know that not all organizations are created equal. And if you have a negative experience with a rescue, don't feel like you can't find another rescue to go to maybe have a different experience with. One of the things that Susan and I talked about, because when she told me definitively, I want to foster, like, this was something that I obviously was wishing that she would say, and I was kind of feeling in my heart that she probably was going to say. But when she said it out loud, when we were on a walk together with the dogs, I said, well, listen, like, obviously Cross Your Paws is an option for you, and you have me. I said, but there's no shortage of rescues that need fosters, so wherever you go, I support that decision. Go where you want to go where you feel like you need to go. And Susan might foster with us for a while, and then she said, she has a friend that's with another organization. She may also decide to foster with them. Susan is kind of a little bit of this, like, unique, like perfect foster, in the sense that she is dog savvy, and lives alone and doesn't have another dog in the house. And there are so many dogs that they do need to be in an only dog situation. And it can be very, very challenging to find a foster for that dog. When this is an incredible dog, they're a loving dog, they're a healthy dog, they're great with people. They just need to be in only pet households. So Susan is like this, like perfect, like need, like fulfills this need of she doesn't have any other dogs in the household currently, so she could take on a dog that needs that type of support outside of the shelter environment. So it wouldn't surprise me if you end up fostering for multiple organizations to fill a little bit of a unique need that many rescues really have and really struggle with, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it kind of leads me, you talking about experiencing something that you weren't expecting in having the full support of the group. Has there been anything else in the fostering journey of, the whole 4 days that you've had, Jesse, that has kind of surprised you, or that it wasn't something that you weren't expecting?
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of tried to approach it pretty loosely of like, I don't really know what to expect. So I'm just going to kind of let myself settle. Just like she needed to sort of decompress and figure it out, I'm going through the same thing of like, okay, like, what is this? How is this going to feel? What is my life going to look like, as I'm doing this? And I think that there's not really so much been things that have been like, oh, I never really would have considered that. But there's been sort of things where it's like, oh, like I forgot about that, or I I'm feeling very strongly compelled towards certain things. So like I in my experience with my own dog, I just by her nature, she was not a dog. She was not a people dog. She liked other
No,
dogs, but
she literally died without letting me pet her one single time, and I will never forgive her for that. I I mean, there's a part of me that is so angry at Schuyler for that. I mean, it's really just rude, is what it is.
I know she was such an asshole. And
She
she would approach, she would tail wagging, head up, and then you go to pet her, and she's like, "Nope."
she'd be like, no, no,
Yeah.
thank you,
So
no
I
touchy.
I had a lot of experience with, oh, she's not friendly, you can't approach. Yeah, she can try to say hi, but she won't say hi back. And so I have this very strong inclination with Jessie, who also has a little hesitancy just because of her
Hmm.
beginning, that I'm like, no, we are going to socialize you. You are going to
Hmm.
like people. I'm not going to obviously put you in any bad situations, but we are going to
Right.
present lots of opportunities for you to meet lots of people. I have treats with me all the time. Anybody even like raises an eyebrow at her, I'm like, here, you want to give her a treat? So, walking in the town that I'm in, which is a very like walkable town, every single person we pass, for the most part, because she's an adorable little puppy, is like, oh my gosh, look
Hmm.
at your puppy. And I'm like, she's adoptable. Here, take a treat. Pet her. And so
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised at my own, like, okay, this is my mission, is like, we are going to make you comfortable and happy with people. And even in, like, I got her a Monday night, and it's now Sunday, and she's doing better. She's not,
Hmm.
she still has a little bit of hesitancy, and she's not running up and jumping on people, but they give her a treat, she comes back, she sniffs, she lets them pet her back. She's already she's more comfortable, and that to me is
Hmm.
like, okay, so that surprised me a little bit, just how passionate like I immediately was with that. It's also been really
Hmm.
fun to like, some of what I missed after losing Schuyler was we would go to the farmers market, we would go to the coffee shop, and Schuyler was a beautiful dog, if I do say so myself. And she
Hmm.
got a lot of compliments, and that's a lovely feeling. And that kind of has been fun of like, oh, I got a dog again, and she's adorable. And so people are always
Yeah.
wanting to say hi. We went to the farmer's market. She did a great job. We've been to the coffee shop multiple times. This morning, the barista recognized her from a previous day. We walked in and she goes,
Nice.
"Is this Jessica?" So
Yeah.
she's, that part, I just surprised me a little in my kind of reaction to it. Nothing I don't think really like about the actual experience of, like you said, I'm familiar with dogs. I take care of all my friends' dogs. I've trained my best friend's puppies.
Mhm.
I'm, pretty on top of just behaviorally working with a dog. So that all part of it has been, not necessarily anything super surprising to me. I will say something that has been a blessing is that, um,
She's so stinking cute.
I know. Um, Something that has been a blessing is she's excellent in her crate. So I know
Yeah,
that
that's
that's,
been crazy with Kelly too, is that she took to the crate immediately and being able to
yeah.
utilize that as a tool has been wonderful.
Yeah, and I know just in talking with you, that's such a mixed bag. You get dogs who
Yes.
are 100% with it. You get dogs who really can't do it. So I just didn't know what to expect there. And that has been
Hmm.
like a huge blessing of night one. Nothing. She spent the whole night in the crate. She goes in anytime I leave the house. She's perfectly happy. She runs into it. If I'm down in
Hmm.
the basement, just doing laundry or whatnot, she'll go lay in it, door open, which was not my experience with Schuyler. So that has been a
Hmm.
real blessing. And I know that that is special. So that has been nice. And something that really stuck with me that you said, I forget, either it was on the podcast or a newsletter, I'm not sure where, but you were talking, you kind of were listing out, reasons that people would say they couldn't foster and sort of your
Hmm.
responses to those things. I don't know if you remember where you did this, but
I think
um
that was on the blog post that I did for Voters Action for Animals. I think it was on the blog post.
okay.
Hmm.
One of those things, and one of my worries was I work a lot. I'm out of the house.
Hmm.
I'm also just like a very active person, and I'm out of the house. And not all those things are activities that a dog can come along for. If they are,
Hmm.
I'm bringing her. But if they aren't, um, sorry, she's asleep. um, but you said in that post that being in a crate or in a safe place in your house is so far superior to being in a shelter that
Hmm.
it's okay. If they're in a crate, they're in a calm, quiet, cool place. And, she's got water, she has everything she needs, and that she's more comfortable here doing that than she would be in a shelter. And that's true for like, I know that the area that I have it's quiet, it's cool, it's dark, it's like a very calm spot. And so I know for future fosters, even if they aren't great with crates, I can pen them, that it's going to be that space is more comfortable than what they would be experiencing in a loud, noisy, smelly shelter. And so for me, knowing there's no real way around me having to go to work, you know, and
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
can't bring her with me for that. And I can't bring dogs with me because I'm in other people's homes and public places. So,
Hmm.
um, knowing like they're good, they're okay, and I think even
Hmm.
this week we had a conversation about, you said, people think you need to be with your dog all the time and they need a break. It's okay for
Hmm.
them to be having quiet time in their crate. That's good for them, especially coming out of a shelter or a more crazy situation, that
Hmm.
they're going to need that. And so that took away, I think, some of my guilt of, okay, well, I can't give 100% of my time to these dogs because that's just not the reality of dogs. And I knew that because I know you don't. You work full time, you have an active life, you're out of the house, and I knew that. But then it's like, okay, knowing that and like living it again are two different experiences. So I've been like, that was to see that and read that was like, that was a real light bulb over for me, because I think that was before Schuyler passed. And I think I was like, okay, you just answered one of the qualms that I'd had about it. And I was like, okay. And then I also know I have a great support system. I mean, I have you, I have parents close by. I have a good friend who has a dog in a house that my Schuyler spent a lot of time with, and she's so excited that I'm doing this. So I knew that I had a support system that I knew, was going to help me with it. But I think just the relief of knowing, like, she's any dog. Not to toot my own horn, but is going to be happy in my house, or at least at the minimum feel calmer and quieter, in my house than they would be in a different situation.
I think that sometimes people think that they have to meet certain metrics and be in this perfect scenario before they could foster. And certainly there are certain things that you want to make sure that you're able to accomplish first, right? Like you do want to make sure that if you have a dog selective or dog reactive dog, maybe you wait until that dog's no longer with you before you start bringing in a lot of unfamiliar dogs in the household. If you have, kids who are of an age where you're not really in a position to tell them to give the dog space, maybe you wait till those kids get a little older. Certainly there are absolutely scenarios in which bringing in a foster is not going to be the right thing to do. However, I think it's really important, and I think Susan did a great job of pointing it out. you know, you don't have to be perfect to be the perfect home for this dog, right? So, to Susan's point, so many of these rescues are coming from being strays, being dumped, being in a loud or crowded, they're all crowded shelter environment, or even the dogs that are being rehomed from a loving home, right? Every single one of those animals, in my opinion, the first thing that they need is to feel safe. And honestly, like, feeling safe doesn't mean being with them 24/7, right? That's not what safety and security is. Safety and security is, no, I'm going to get meals regularly. No, I have a comfortable temperature controlled place to sleep. No, I have some time to myself to decompress. I talk about this when I talk about the decompression period for newly adopted dogs. You're imagine you're in this person's house and they will not leave you alone. They will not leave you alone. Nobody would want that scenario.
It's my worst nightmare.
So that is the worst nightmare, right? And so, we don't have to be perfect. And, one of the other things that I hear a lot of people say about not having a dog or not getting a dog is they say, well, like, I don't have a yard. Susan has a beautiful garden and a beautiful patio, but she don't got no yard.
Nope.
She has no yard. She lives in a suburban area where her house is kind of tucked beautifully in this little, she doesn't have a yard. Now she's in a very walkable area, which is really just truly incredible. But ultimately she doesn't have a yard. So she doesn't have this outdoor space where she can let her dog out and let the dog sort of just freely roam. And so she makes it work in different ways. But I love that you brought up that you don't have to be I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect home or a perfect scenario. You're going to have a job. Susan runs her own business. She's kind of downplaying it and saying she goes to work, but Susan runs her own company, and she's very accomplished and she's very brilliant. And she has really figured out, I need to have a social life. Susan goes to 2 different kinds of gym regularly. 3.
Pilates. I got a Pilates.
Oh, Pilates. Okay. So spin out lifting weights and Pilates. So Susan goes to 3 different kinds of gyms. And like I said, she's a very accomplished person. But she made a decision to say that there are still so many things that I can bring to this dog's situation. And all of these things, in these slight imperfections that might be there, are still going to be a better scenario than where the dog was, previously not thriving in its previous foster home. And then even prior to that, when these puppies were found, definitely having been dumped near in Kentucky. And so I love that. I love that attitude. I love that idea that I don't have to be absolutely perfect to be perfect, because you are perfect.
Yeah.
We're going to find her a perfect home.
And I do think, with the the reality of it, you do have to know that if you are in a situation, like if you live in an apartment or if you're like me, where you're just in a densely populated neighborhood, you're committing to more time. I can't just open the door and let Jessica out. I'm taking her for walks. It is a commitment that I am
Hmm.
doing, that even if we just have to go pee pee and poo poo, she's on a leash and I'm going to, and that's
Hmm.
something that I do think, if you're thinking about fostering and that is your situation, you got to be realistic with yourself that like that is going to be a time commitment, and that is
Hmm.
something that you do have to consider. Now, that being said, I think there's also ways where if you maybe yourself don't have space, but you have a friend who has a fenced in yard, or you have family nearby that has a fenced in yard, or there's a dog park in your town, you can still have ways where you don't have to be, you can allow the dog and you can maybe have some downtime while the dog is still playing. Like I can go over to Kelly's house, I can float in a pool for infinity number of hours, and Jessica and her sister Kelly and Kelly's
Cheese.
human Kelly's other dog Cheese can just be playing, and so I know that I knew, and I obviously had a dog in this house before this, that I'm agreeing to more of a sacrifice. I'm
Hmm.
knowing that I have to put my shoes on and I have to make sure that I have pants on and leave the house. I can't just open the door, so that is the
Hmm.
reality of it. But I also, again, it's not crazy. It takes 3 minutes for us to go and pee. It takes
Right.
10 minutes to walk around the block. And even this past week when it's been 1,000 degrees,
I know.
and that is, again, that's the reality of it. You're going to be walking a dog when it's 95 degrees, you're going to be walking a dog when it's negative 10 degrees, and again,
Right.
that is something that you do have to consider. But I think that, for me, it's not even a question, because like I get to hang out with a dog. So, I'm on those walks
Hmm.
and I'm enjoying myself because I'm watching her discover the world and climb up hills and put every single thing in her mouth. So it's
Oh,
it's a
I know.
it's for me, it's engaging and fulfilling, and I'm, getting a lot out of it. And I think that, like, you just, if you're interested in fostering and you don't have a yard and that's what's holding you back, I don't think it needs to hold you back. I think you just need to know what that reality of that looks like, and just, be prepared for, you're a part of every experience they have outside.
Hmm.
And that can also have such a benefit of, it's such a bonding time for Jessica and I, because Jessica loves to be outside. She is her happiest
Hmm.
when she is outside. And so the first couple days when she was very nervous and scared and didn't really know where she would come alive outside. So we went on a lot of walks, even though it was 97 degrees outside,
Hmm.
because we couldn't go for long walks. So we went for short little walks, but we went for a lot of them because I knew that she was more comfortable outside. And it was a way for her to feel a little better, and then she was feeling a little better with me, and I could reinforce a lot because we were doing things, and it just, for us, it really, initially I think worked very well. um yeah. Oh my god, look at this dog. She is passed
I
out.
know. She is passed out. I have a feeling Kelly is in the other room also passed out. So what is, if somebody is listening and they are thinking about fostering, or they're thinking about getting into animal rescue and volunteering in a real way, what is something that you would tell them to help them make a decision that was best for them?
I think the biggest consideration is your environment, right? So again, making sure, if you do have a dog, you have to be really real with yourself about, is my dog going to be okay with other dogs coming into their space? And again, the reality of Schuyler was no. I maybe could have made it work with a certain dog, but I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
going to be the kind of foster that I can be now with an empty
Mm-hmm.
house that, I know that doesn't matter. I can take any dog, and so
Mm-hmm.
I think you do really have to consider that. Obviously, you have to consider other members of your family. I'm single. I don't have any children. So for me, again, no brainer. Also, I'm blessed that everybody in my life loves animals. So I know anybody coming into this house is very excited, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that you have to, again, and I think that we can have the best of intentions and really want to help, but if your situation, you have to be safe and you have to make sure that not only your family is safe, but the dog is safe. And so I think that you really do have to consider. And then I think you just have to know that it's a responsibility and it is going to change your life. You're now responsible for somebody. It's going to change your ability to do things, so again, and this is different with every dog. Thankfully, Jessica, I can bring her with me, so I can bring her to do things, and so that means that I'm not, always having to come back and be restricted in that way. But I think that's the reality of it, is you can't just leave the house and not come back for 6 to 8 hours. Your life will change. You have to adjust to that, and so you just have to know that. And again, I don't think it's a barrier, it's too hard of a barrier to overcome. I think it's just an adjustment, especially if you're coming to this not having had animals and you don't know what that reality is. And I think that fostering could be a unique way to see that and kind of understand that. But that's just the reality of having a pet, is that you are their lifeline. You are their source of nutrients, you are their source of exercise, you are everything. So you have to know that that comes first. And so if I have to make the decision of, well, I've been out all morning running around doing the things, somebody invites me to go to a concert, I'm like, no, I'm not going to go to the concert because I know I was out all morning and I need to spend time here. And, we need to be doing things to get engagement. And so that's just, I think, you know, that's the reality of it. But I also think I get so much out of it that for me, it's not really a sacrifice. Also, I don't really like going to concerts. But anyway,
Well, no, it
for
just means
me,
that I get to see you more because I can invite you over anytime and you can literally bring
yeah.
her. There's no barrier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just set up your life such that every friend you have is happy having dogs in their house.
Let me tell you, I have literally cultivated a group of people around me that are just happy to see dogs all the time, and it is
Yeah,
the best.
yeah, it is
It
definitely
is
the
the
best.
best.
Yeah, but I think that you also I think I think the benefits so outweigh the restrictions. And I know, again, I will say, I think I've gotten very lucky with Jessica as my first foster. For all that she is a puppy and she does puppy things, she is actually such a easy dog. Again,
Yeah.
she loves her crate. She's not housebroken, but she is old enough that it's doable. I have to pay attention. You just have to know that they'll figure that out with time. And so again, that's not a big issue for me, being somebody who's been around dogs her whole life. So, you
Right.
know, there's but honestly, she loves the car. She's like not afraid of things, loud noises. Nothing seems to really bother her. So I know I got very lucky. And so I am kind of reminding myself that not every road is going to be this, smooth.
So this is a
But
really good opportunity for us to really highlight Jessica as our foster spotlight today because I love that you're talking about having gotten lucky with her. It's just she is really just a gem. So for those of you that are following along on YouTube, not only will you see that I am sharing my screen with Miss Jessica on it, but now Susan has picked up Jessica and she's sitting on her lap like Kelly was for me earlier. And so let's talk a a little bit about her, and so that you guys can consider, if you're thinking about adopting a dog, you consider whether or not she's a good fit for you. We do know that she is very dog friendly. She actually really loves other dogs in a way that in my perspective, Suze, she tends to be a little bit more reserved with humans. She does not seem to be that way with other dogs at all. She's happy to greet them. She's happy to be with them and spend time with them and play. She wants to play with other dogs. So she is to reiterate what Susan said, she is not yet house trained, but she is working on it. And she is crate trained though. So that's a beautiful tool. She does walk really well on a leash. Now her bio on Cross Your Paws says they are not sure about her with kids. However, we actually had an experience with her with Susan and I's niece yesterday, who is 3 years old. She actually did very well with our niece. So I would say that whenever you have a dog that is a new dog and that is maybe a little hesitant with people, it's going to be very important that you have children around this dog, that you can make sure that you are monitoring and modifying their behavior so they're not getting in the dog's face, they're not running after the dog, they're not getting in the dog's space in a way that could provoke a reaction. But she did very well with our niece yesterday, and she was cat tested, and she is cat approved as well, according to
No, wait, we gotta update that.
That's our
wait, Kelly.
I'm sorry?
Kelly, we gotta update that. She's not good with cats.
She's not good with cats. We are updating that as we speak. And actually, I'm going to update her bio with some new and updated pictures. Susan, you and I are going to talk about that off the recording. So we're going to go ahead and update her stuff anyway. But she is not good with cats. That is okay. But now we know. And so we have an opportunity to make sure that she ends up in the right household.
Yeah.
So I will put her link in the show notes, as I always do with all of our foster spotlights. And to be perfectly honest, if you decide to apply for Jessica, I'm going to be the one running your app anyway. So just let me know if you heard about her on the podcast, and I'll probably favor you a little bit, just so you know out there. But Suze, I can't thank you enough, not only for deciding to go on this foster journey and being another lifeline and resource for these animals that we love so much, but for sharing your time with me and coming on the podcast and talking a little bit about how fostering is, positively impacting you. I think it's really special to see, as your friend and somebody who loves you. I feel like it looks to me like having a foster is healing a part of you, having lost Schuyler the way that you did. Like, you just seem so genuinely happy and in love with sharing your space with the dog again, which I really love seeing for you.
Yeah, I think I just noticed this week, I have a little bit more sense of purpose. I'm a human who likes to be busy, so she is definitely helping to give that to me. And I also, again, like I said, I think it's just like, it's so fulfilling to know that, everyththing that I am doing and all of the, things that I'm providing for her are just going to help to make sure that she's, finds a great home with a great family. And, she enjoys to lick ears. And so for me, that is like, what a blessing to get to be a positive impact in a dog's life, and then just like send them on to live a wonderful life, and I know, because she is such a cute, sweet, adorable girl, that somebody out there will not be able to resist this face. Look at that face.
I know, she's a tough face to resist. She's a cutie patootie. All right, Suze, I really appreciate your time today. And I know you recently started an Instagram account where you're highlighting your fostering journey. You want to let people know how they can find you on Instagram?
Yes, it is Fluffies_Fosters, and that's FLUFFYS_Fosters. And Jessica she's the first star of it, but as I continue on this journey, that's where I'm going to be highlighting all of our adventures together. I'm just going to put together today, I was going to do a little week update on all the things that we have done together this week. So you can look to find us there. And then obviously I link in that I link to Cross Your Paws and her bio, and then also all Kelly's stuff, so that we can have all the best information. Yeah.
And as a reminder, you can find the podcast on Instagram at the Foster Files Podcast. You can go to the link in my bio to the link tree to subscribe to the newsletter that we send out. I send out once per month where I talk about what's upcoming. And there's a lot upcoming in July and August. So make sure that you're paying attention to that. You can email me if there's somebody that you think I should be talking to at the Foster Files Podcast at Gmail. But honestly, Suze, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate that you stopped by to talk to us a little bit about your journey. I'm really excited to see where it takes you.
Of course. I'm so happy to be here. Can I say the sign off?
Yeah, go for it.
Yay! Be kind to yourself and be kind to animals.
Bye, everybody.